So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I'm joined by James Lollar, and he's basically everything in the band Ghost. They're a band that mixes synthwave with metal, especially some black metal in this record, and electronic. So, James, first of all, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Very well. How are you?
Good. I'm very good. So thank you for joining me today on the couch. So we're here to discuss your sixth album called Prophecy. It's coming out in March. And I was reading a bit about the inspiration for this album, which is very interesting because you were mentioning how like we're going back to that 1950s mentality where everything is satanic. So talk to me a little bit about what drew inspiration for this new record.
I live in Texas, and people here, they call it the Bible Belt. This part of the United States kind of runs through the center of the country. And so everybody in my area it's predominantly Christian. There's more churches than there are, grocery stores. They're everywhere. There's just littered with them. So I'm like inundated with that culture constantly. And, I feel like over the last, I don't know, 5 years maybe, things have just kind of ramped up. Superstitions are getting kind of crazy again. And even people in my hometown, I'm hearing them say crazy things about, like, normal people believe that aliens are working with the government, and there's just like this big push for normalcy here in the States again, which is like strange to me. So yeah, I mean, I'm always kind of pushing back against that kind of superstition and I guess like extreme religion, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, I totally know what you mean. I remember I grew up like in the beginning of the 80s and the 90s, and I remember when they said that the Smurfs were satanic.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, you remember that shit? I remember like having Smurfs and having I had to get rid of them because they were from Satan. And now it's crazy what people believe. So, but yeah, I've seen that type of mentality here in Puerto Rico. Also, too, it's a very Catholic country, mostly Catholic, and yeah, like anything that's out of the normal would be viewed as, oh, that's evil. So I can totally get that. So what you do is pretty cool because you mix synthwave with metal. But I like a quote that you said that that if your music got played in a rave, people would have a bad trip.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've definitely, I used to, like, back in the, I guess, like early 2000s when ecstasy was still a thing, we were all taking that, going to raves, and uh everybody's like really happy at raves and shit, and it's a positive experience. I think some of my music might be a little too dark and abrasive. I can just imagine hearing that, when you're in like a really good place, and that ruining your night for sure.
Yeah, I remember going to a few rave parties, but I never did ecstasy. And when I went to those parties, the only thing I smelled a lot was like the Vicks vapor rub. Uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I,
That brings
I,
back memories.
maybe,
Funny.
yeah, maybe people that are high thought it was cool, but to me, well, it was good because my noses, I could I could breathe well. But I'm like, why does it stink like Vicks vapor rub? And then I was told, oh, that makes you like the get you have like a higher buzz and everything. I'm like, okay, yeah, I didn't know. So to me, electronic music and metal, I think started being accepted like in the 90s. Uh, uh, Especially for me, I was a huge fan of the Prodigy, which I
Yeah.
think was one of the first commercial like viable bands that mix electronic music with like rock and metal, and like their music was kind of like, it wasn't like happy electronic music. It was hard and intense, and I saw the band twice live. Was that what like for you like growing up? Because I know you did other metal bands, and what electronic music were an influence for Ghost?
I mean, early on, Depeche Mode. I can't remember a time in my life where I haven't liked that band. And then, you know, probably Ministry was one of my earliest influences. And I think a friend showed me Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails when I was like 11 on like a car ride to a soccer game or something. You know, it was like a teammate. We
Mhm.
were sharing like a CD player, and he showed me Pretty Hate Machine. So like those three, and like Human League, all that stuff. You know, I'm a child of the '80s, so it was a good time for electronic music. So there's just a ton of influences, but definitely like Nine Inch Nails was probably one that hit really hard when I first heard it because I'd never heard anything that loud.
Oh yeah, they're very loud. I haven't seen them live. That's on my bucket list. But yeah, they're a great band. But yeah, in the '90s with those bands, Nine Inch Nails, Ministry. But when I think of like pure electronic, I think the Prodigy was more electronic than metal, and I think they were like
Yeah,
the yeah,
I liked the Prodigy too. I mean, you know, they got so much play. They were all over the place when
they were
they kind of blew up.
they were all over the place. So uh, when you're playing shows, how is it different playing like when you're playing in a metal band that's playing something that's not electronic to when you're doing Ghost?
Well, everything is like right now I'm using a sampler live to trigger like the main part of the backing tracks, and the songs are broken up into parts where like the timing needs to go so that the bass player that plays with me can catch where we are in a song or whatever. And I guess the main difference is that there's a lot of planning that goes into it beforehand, like down to like really tiny minuscule details, you know, because you're syncing lights, and uh, it's different than like if the drummer messes up at a metal show, you know, he could just pick a stick up, whatever, continue. It's a little different. So everything's just got to be planned down to like the second. And so, uh, I mean, that would be the main difference. We did on this last tour I did with Catatonia. There was a part where the backing tracks dropped out and the bass player just kept playing, and I had to like zoom in on the wave to find out where he was. And I kind of guessed, but we got lucky, and it looked like, you know, like we were a real band or whatever. But yeah, that's the main difference. Is just planning everything down to like not messing up, because when you mess up in electronic music, it's obvious.
Yeah, I'm guessing it can be more obvious like than on another type of metal show. So the album, I want to talk some of the tracks of the album. I know one of the recent singles that you had for the like I think like 5 days ago, it was for Widow song, which I thought is pretty interesting. Tell me a little bit about the background for that song.
So the title is a band that is from close to where I live now. They're not a band anymore. They haven't been for years, but the singer was a really good friend of mine, and
Mhm.
he died like suddenly. There was no real explanation. He wasn't on drugs or anything. So it's kind of a tribute to him and those guys, because I kind of really looked up to those guys at the time. They were playing really hard, like Southern metal. This was probably 2013, maybe before that. No, it's probably like 2009. I don't know. It's a long time ago. So it's mainly a tribute to them and to my friend. But lyrically, it's kind of more of like it's a look through like the lens of like how I would imagine a modern day Jesus looking at the world, and how, you know, his teachings haven't really, you know, caught on and worked. So it's like a defeatist look through the Messiah's eyes. You know, I did all this work, but for what?
Yeah, well, if he came back, I guaranteed he would be crucified again.
Oh,
maybe,
absolutely.
maybe in an electric chair or something. Because like when I went to Catholic school, and when you like really analyze the story of like what he did, he was a dude going going and talking to people saying he was the Lord, the Messiah. He would be put in an insane asylum
Yeah,
today,
yeah,
like if that happened, like, and people are like, no, like, come on. You would say he was crazy, unless he could really turn water into wine. Then it would be a party favorite. But besides that, I think, yeah, no, uh, there he would be, yeah, totally bust. So yeah, that's a good song, and I like the intro of the record a lot. I think it really sets the tone. Uh, because also you had a music video for that, like a lyric video for Judgment and Prophecy. And I like it because I like when you were stating Depeche Mode as an influence. Depeche Mode, people think that it's all happy, but Depeche Mode can have like really dark music, uh, especially yeah, some of their like '90s album I think were their darkest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Judgment and Prophecy, that one's setting the tone because there's like a loose concept on this record of like evil coming back or people being uh, afraid of stuff. So what are those two songs mainly about?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of loosely just like Armageddon as the Christian Bible tells it, it's the end of the world because of nuclear war or whatever, we're always trying to destroy ourselves. But in Revelation it talks about the Antichrist and the demons coming back, and it's just hell on earth. So I kind of wanted to, you know, it's kind of told through my lens, I guess, the story of Revelation and how Armageddon will come about according to Christians. So, I mean, that's really what inspired the record. And I've really never looked at it from the Christian perspective as far as my music goes. I've always done it from Satan's perspective. So I wanted to kind of play with it from a different angle.
Yeah,
Of
and now
course,
that
I
you're
mean,
doing that, yeah,
I grew up Christian too. So,
of course, so like yeah, that's why we sometimes rebel about it. So I'm glad you said that about the perspective of Satan because that goes well into the album artwork. Uh, I like it because there's it doesn't say the name of the band or the album, but it's just pretty intense. Uh, so is Satan here like falling to the earth while it's exploding on this artwork?
yeah, I mean, I kind of gave the artist, Moral, like, he's incredibly talented and he's worked with a lot of really, really good bands. And he's always been trying to work with me. Like, I think he just likes my music. And so I kind of just gave him, I had a picture of the nuclear explosion. That's what I gave him for reference. And of course, the story of the record. So that's just him and his free will kind of running with what he thought the album should be represented by. I mean, Satan's in the hanging man pose, which is like, tied to like Satanism and magic and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, the
I
inverted
mean, like,
cross. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it's him just, it's Moral, the artist, just kind of his spin, his interpretation of the album, his visual representation.
Yeah, it's a cool album artwork. And so the name of the album, Golgotha, uh, when you're coming up with names of records, how do you go about that process?
I mean, usually it's a song that's on the record, or just kind of the general idea. I mean, like with the last album, Rites of Love and Reverence, I just played with a bunch of different, sentences until something kind of stuck. But with this one, it was just, I mean, Prophecy. It's a title track. It works.
Yeah, it's a oh where I said Golgotha. Yeah, that's not the name of the record. It's Prophecy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
Golgotha is
good.
one of the songs. So yeah, it makes sense that you would name it Prophecy. So on this album for you, like what is the main difference from this one to your last record?
I mean, this one's heavier. It's more instrumental. The last record, every track I think had vocals, and this one, there's only 4 out of 13 with vocals, I think. So that's the main difference. It's less vocal. It's heavier. I would say it's more like some of my earlier records, like Behemoth. Um, but yeah, I think those are the main differences.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. So you're a horror fan. So how much influence from horror do you get when you're uh, doing this music?
A lot. I mean, all the arpeggios that like John Carpenter used. I mean, especially like the one in Halloween. I use that kind of arpeggio a lot just to tie it back into 80s horror, because that's what the project started out as, kind of like an homage to you know uh people like John Carpenter and Wes Craven and all the 80s horror, because that's what I grew up on. So yeah, I mean, it's just a direct influence, and I put it directly into my songs. So less of an influence, more of a tribute, probably.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that in the music on this record. So you wrote this when you were like locked down in the pandemic. What's your process when you sit down to do this? Because basically this is all you.
I mean, I do it right here. It's different every song. I used to like really sit down when I was starting a record and just start to work, but now I work whenever it feels like something's gonna come of it instead of trying to force it. But yeah, my process is different. But I usually start with a bass line and a general idea. Sometimes it's a song I've heard recently, or an old song that I've reheard that'll start the influence and the get the track rolling. And then as I write the rest of it, it'll kind of morph into something completely different. It usually never sounds like the influence that I start with. But yeah, it's usually a song or a movie that something I'll hear something. Sometimes it's a dream. I'll hear a melody and wake up and like run downstairs and try to translate it into real life. So yeah, it's just different. But once I get going, it's kind of the same bass line. Then I'll start with the percussion and bring in leads and stuff like that. And if it's a vocal track, then I know from the beginning it's going to be a vocal track.
Yeah, no, cool. Because yeah, no, I know some of the tracks are more like instrumental, but there's some with vocals. But I think in this type of music, not everything needs vocals. Sometimes just the eerie instrumentals give that feel of like what you're trying to do with prophecy. So what's next for Ghost? I know the album's coming out in March. What are the immediate plans?
Immediate plans, I'm gonna do a few one-off shows in like major areas here in the US. Everything's super busy touring wise right now. So I'm pretty sure I'll be in Europe later this year, and I'll be doing a full US run later this year. And then other than that, anything that comes up, festivals, I'll try and make those as well.
Yeah, and also this is gonna be your first album release with Metal Blade Records, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. That Metal Blade Records. Usually, at least for me, if something's releasing Metal Blade Records, that's like a seal of quality. Like because they have a lot of like great bands, so it's awesome that they're also open-minded to have like a band that it's different with the dark synth wave that you play. How did that come about? You getting signed to Metal Blade Records?
Um, I've actually been talking to them for quite a while. I've been talking to them on and off since probably like probably since Possessor, which was like I think my third record, so third or fourth. And it just never really kind of worked. And then my manager actually manages the band Igor with the three R's. It's kind of like an electronic fusion. And they just signed to Metal Blade. So, they were like, we did it with Igor. Let's try it with Ghost. It's obviously a dream come true. I mean, it's like younger me is freaking out. I mean, I'm freaking out, but you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah,
a
I know what you
childhood
mean.
kind
I know what you mean. So, and you've been around 10 years now. Back in 2013, when you picked the name, and there's that other, the other Ghost band. I thought you never thought that would be like an issue. Like, do they confuse the bands sometimes?
Oh, anytime I'm in an airport or something, and then somebody asks me, if I'm in a band, they're like, "Who?" I'm like, I dread answering because they always think it's the other Ghost. And I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, I didn't. When I started, I had heard the name, but I had been playing in doom bands for quite a while, for probably like 4 or 5 years, and I think it's kind of like their early stuff is kind of doom adjacent, so I was kind of over the sound at the time. So I didn't really look into it. And then, of course, like on their second record, when they really started picking up steam, I was like, fuck, and now they're an international sensation. So it is what
Yeah,
it
when they
is.
first started, I didn't think they were gonna be as huge as they are, to be
Yeah.
honest, because I thought that they sounded like so retro that I don't think young people are gonna dig this because it sounds too like Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah.
And it was like the djent bands and like modern sounding bands, but yeah, we were wrong, and yeah, they did blew up. But at least you spell Ghost Ghost. So
Yeah.
that's the difference of it. And the logo, I like the logo. The logo is pretty cool. Like when you were coming up with this logo, like did you always have the idea of being like bones?
No, I mean, I've gone through probably 3 or 4 different logos. This one, I did this one myself, probably, I guess, before the last record. Um, no, I don't remember where I saw something similar. I can't
Mhm.
remember whose logo it was, and I just thought it was a really decent idea. It didn't look as like boned as mine does, I guess is how you would say it. But yeah, I think it was like some goth band from like the 90s or something that I saw that used a similar thing, and I thought it was a great idea. So I just kind of put my own spin on it.
Yeah, it looks cool. And uh how, for you, like doing like, because you do so much, like how used to about doing like everything yourself? Because the thing is, when you do everything yourself, if something fucks up, like it's my fault, I can't blame so, someone else in the band for what happened.
Yeah, I mean that's the truth. It's been a ride. I mean, sometimes I really like myself, and sometimes I wonder what the fuck I'm doing. So it's interesting not having people to bounce ideas off. But I do have, a couple guys that have been with me for a while that kind of take that role as far as like I show them all my music before I release it. I take advice from, a couple of my closest friends. So I kind of have that a little bit, but it's kind of where I choose.
No, and it's always good, to have like, if they're childhood friends from a long time, they're not gonna, they're gonna be honest with you and tell you what they think of it. So, it's pretty exciting times, and obviously, it's huge being signed to Metal Blade Records. I would be also ecstatic myself if I was like a musician and a record label of that prestige like sign me. And I was wondering, when you play live, because I got do you use this mask when you play live?
Yeah, I am. Again, I went through probably 3 or 4 years where I played without it, but yeah, it's back on.
Yeah, when I was gonna do the interview, I'm like, oh, it would be awesome if you did the interview with the mask. Uh,
I would, but the whole thing is like really
no, that
hard
has to be
plastic.
uncomfortable.
So it'll
Yeah,
be like this.
yeah. I recently interviewed a cremator from Ghoul, and it was full the costume, so it was pretty interesting.
That's
So
funny.
James, it's pretty cool to meet you and talk about the Prophecy album. You know why I did Golgotha? Because that's the last song I was listening to, and I saw, I'm like, no, it's Prophecy. So get the
And I'm
Prophecy
sorry.
album. It's out, but Golgotha is another cool song that's on the album. The album is out. I think it's March 8th, right?
Yep.
March 8th, Metal Blade Records. I'll put the link for the pre-orders. I'm sure there's lots of variants that people can get. And you
Yeah.
heard it here. There's going to be shows. Do you already know where the cities, or is it already still being booked and planned?
It's still being booked, so
Yeah.
far out that I would say there's definitely a show in New Orleans, Louisiana coming up, probably New York, probably LA. That's just over here, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. So, James, I want to thank you for taking time of your busy morning to chat with me about the album. So, people, Ghost, not to be confused with the other Ghost, has an album out March 8th, Prophecy. You can there's two songs that are already lyric videos for Widow Song and Judgment and Prophecy. They're already that you can watch them, and it's pretty cool because you can get the lyrics, and they're very like if you like sinister electronic synthwave music with metal influences, you will dig Ghost, because yeah, that's what he plays. And yeah, I will put the links here. So James, again, you have a great day. So people, until next time, this is Hector, the shield dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.